International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has released some dire predictions about how much damage the Canadian and world economy is expected to suffer because of this coronavirus pandemic. Scott Peterson is on this story. What's it looking like, Scott?
It's looking like going to be the worst recession for the Canadian economy going back decades, certainly in my lifetime. And just to remind people, a recession is when there's 2 quarters of negative growth. The International Monetary Fund, for the first time, is putting a solid number on how bad the contraction for the entire year is expected to be. Take a look at this just out this morning from the International Monetary Fund. The Canadian economy expected to contract 6.2% for 2020. That's the worst contraction. It's double what it was back in 2009, 1981, or 1991. So this will be the worst that we've seen. We are expecting 2021 to bounce back over 4%, but nonetheless, this is the worst recession going back decades, or at least until metrics were kept this way for the Canadian economy. Now, beyond that, Canada is linked into the world economy and the U.S., our biggest trading partner. The IMF also taking a look at those economies and seeing how bad the contraction this year is going to be as well. If we start with the U.S., again, our biggest trading partner, that is expected to contract this year. That's for the entire year, down 5.9%. And if we look at the world economy, as far as all the economies together, that's expected to go down 3%. And that number there is the worst contraction for the entire global economy going back all the way to the Great Depression back in 1929. Here's an IMF chief economist sort of outlining what this is going to mean for people around the world.
The magnitude and speed of collapse in activity that has followed is unlike anything experienced in our lifetimes. This is a crisis like no other, which means there is substantial uncertainty about the impact it will have on people's lives and livelihoods.
And also goes on to say that $9 trillion is going to be melted away from global economies, and that's a very esoteric number. When you compare it to, that's the size of the economy, basically, of Germany and Japan disappearing from the world economy. That's how big the contraction is. Also bad news for the Alberta oil sands. They're saying West Texas Intermediate expected to average about $35 tops through this year and next year. And Western Canadian Select, we're looking at it this morning, below $5 a barrel soon.
Wow. Why don't we have a look at the numbers, Scott?
Yeah, because they're counterintuitive here. The markets sometimes look out far into the future, and they are looking beyond this, beyond the next quarter, even 2 quarters. So we're seeing the Dow Jones up about 512 points, the TSX up 200 points, and they're looking at numbers that suggest that the pandemic around the world might be easing somewhat. So there's a little bit of optimism as far as what the recovery will look like, 6-9 months down the road, Suanna.
Thanks for that, Scott.
You bet.